Hey guys, today I want to talk about using mods. If you use any of my presets or others, you probably see it a lot of times. There's these main presets, there's a recipe that you make or you download, and then you have these mods that maybe change an aspect. This works in Lightroom, it works in Capture One styles. Then you have things like the new Silver 5, which has the mod kit, which is actually a separate pack of only mod presets that works on Silver, but you can also use on anything else. If you use Filmist, it has the Chem Kit mods, which are mods that are more inspired by chemical effects and things like that. Today I want to talk about how to use mods, how you can make your own mods, and why they're so important in editing images to save time. You go out with a camera, you take a photo, and now you bring it back. You have this raw file, maybe a JPEG, but shoot the raw file if you can. Now you can apply presets, you can manipulate sliders, but what's the best way? How are raw editing apps intending you to get to that look? By using presets and styles, and then tweaking with them as needed. Whether you're using my presets that you can get from my site, my free ones that you can also get from my site, whether you're making your own, it doesn't matter. The main thing is that you have your kit. If you don't, you're getting a less refined, a less subtle, a less nuanced edit. If you look at this here, it's obvious it's way too dark and there's things going on. We're in Lightroom here, and I'm gonna come here and say, all right, let's say I was editing this for black and white. It's important to look at the soul of an image, the way the eyes are, the way the light, the emotion, things like that. When I shoot, I want to get the light right in camera. This is an example of a photo where that light isn't very good. In fact, probably what happened here is the strobe didn't go off. Let's come back to here and let's go to something like Darkroom Silver, which is one of my favorites in Silver 5. So I'm gonna go down to something like the glass plate look. Okay, so here's glass plate, and it's dark. Obviously it's too dark, so let's just push this up by a stop or so. Let's round off our tones a little bit by going up to Mod Kit. If you watch my recent video on the F-curve, you know that Mod Kit has this F-curve preset. And this I can apply and it changes my tone curve only. I applied a formula, a recipe. In this case, my glass plate black and white look. Then I said, okay, now I want a little more control of things. The mods are actually separate. That way they don't distract from your main recipes, and they're right there at the top, and you can use them with anything. So if you're making your own mod presets, think about making a pack of mod presets separate from other stuff you're using that are your favorite mods. And if you're using mod presets like mine, I'm gonna show you a little bit of how to look for it. I would generally always do the main process first. I'm gonna go here, and I did the Intella F-curve. Now, the cool thing in Lightroom now in the latest versions is you have this control where you can go up and down. You can do this in Capture One as well. It just works a little bit differently in that you would apply the mod to a layer, right? And you could turn it down if you wanted. But if you wanted to go more, you'd have to then apply the mod again to another layer. So you can build up in Capture One. I do like in Lightroom how we can just turn this effect up or down instead of the opacity of a layer. And if you look down here, it's actually altering the curve. It's not just changing the opacity of something, it's actually dynamically updating the setting. But look what we did with this photo from here being way too dark, just way underdone. And in just a few clicks, we went to here. Now that's a big transformation. Raw editors like Lightroom, like Capture One and others are very preset driven. In fact, if it doesn't have presets or styles, it's really not designed for professional use because this is how we get more combinations and variety. All these different sliders that we otherwise wouldn't try and then quickly mod them as we need to. If you look at Mod Kit, these are adding on and they're only changing one thing. For example, if I click the exposure mod, it adjusts the exposure. The Hi-Fi expansion is adding more dynamic range, and the HDR booster is doing it even further. So if you look, you can see it's really affecting shadows and highlights. Lo-Fi despansion is actually going negative. It's reducing the shadow and highlight dynamic range. And you might think, that's crazy, we want dynamic range. But sometimes there actually is a reason to reduce these things to give you deeper, richer shadow control. The beauty of knowing where your mod's at, having them organized the way that you can access them and have them only affect the relevant things that you want is really powerful. It's also important not to have too many, and that's why I try to keep mods simple. If you have so many presets or styles stacked up, eventually you're spending so many time hunting through them that you start to lose focus. You start to lose the inspiration of, I'm improving this photo, and you kind of start to get to this point where you're like, I don't know what to do with this photo. I've been doing a lot of these Xpan 65 by 24 crops because I just love the format. I love the way it prints. It doesn't share as well on social media, but it's just really fun to work with. So if I go into here, let's actually go to a completely different preset pack, and I'm going to apply something from my gold chrome, which is all focused on those gold tones. Looks really good. Now I can go up here to the same mod kit and say, hey, I want to do more with exposure. In this case, I'm going to darken exposure because I want that rich shadow. Here's one where you could do hi-fi or HDR to bring dynamic range, but I could also do lo-fi to actually bring the shadows in. Black and white backlight is going to have more contrast. We have the adaptive detail and noise, ISO tools like the low ISO grain mod. I'll tell you a secret about my photography. I almost always put grain. And people talk about worms, and they talk about noise and noise reduction tools and AI. And I shoot Sony and I shoot Fuji, and I'm gonna be doing a video soon showing why worms are not actually a problem in Lightroom or Capture One, but I'll give you an overall secret, regardless of whether you're shooting Fuji or any other brand. Adding a little bit of grain just brings in that natural organic texture. I usually do it at the last step. You can see how atmospheric soft here is reducing the clarity and giving me that more glowy feel, whereas atmospheric grit is doing the opposite and increasing those. Both actually look good here. It's just a question of what you're going with. Don't make the mistake that says, I need to push sliders up. I need to move those sliders. I need to drive those sliders. Sometimes you want to lower those settings. Sometimes you want to lower the dynamic range. Sometimes you want to dial back and enrich your shadows and make sure you're using that whole tone range. And what each mod preset is doing is it's only adding that thing. So when you go over here, if I say, hey, I'm going to do XYZ with this curve, and now I want to save it, I can go up here, create a preset, and then go down and say, I don't want anything checked, right? Clear it all, and then only select tone curve. And then I can save that as a preset. Now when I go and apply that preset, it's going to work just like I did with the F curve in ModKit, where you can see how it's only changing the curve. I designed this preset and manually coded it so it only affected the point curve, and that's what makes my F curve preset in the ModKit so useful, is even if you have color curve adjustments or parametric sliders, it's going to leave those alone and only affect that one point. If you go and you look at a preset file, like you show it in Explorer by right-clicking, and here's the actual file for that preset, if I open the code of that in a text editor, I can get nerdy and play around and mod it manually, take things out. So you're coming in, you browse through, and you get the formula you want for this. Let's say we want to do Ektar. Ektar looks really cool on this site down in Valle de Bravo. And now I can go up here and I could use the ChemKit mods from within Filmist here, where I just applied the Ektar look. And by the way, you can try these out by downloading the Filmist sampler, the Silver sampler. I'll put links to that in the comments, because the samplers that I put out in my presets, the free packs, also come with a mod kit, a mod preset or two generally, so you can play around and kind of get the idea of applying a base look and then a mod. So in this case, I could say, well, let's use the Xsoft Glass mod for a softer, more vintage look, or maybe do more micro contrast and bring out the details in the sky and the paragliders. Now in Lightroom, there's actually some AI tools in the mod kit, and again, those are only going to add AI layers, like to a portrait, for example, and I've showed videos about that. Those work similar to my Elegance presets. So AI presets work in the same way, except for they're just adding AI layers. They're not changing your base. So if I go to Elegance presets, for example, which is just a whole bunch of different AI, I could say do the portrait AI beauty combo, and it's gonna run that, and then you can see that it's just created all of the layers in here, which I can then click and adjust as needed, either manually or by selecting different brush presets that I also built for Elegance. So these are local adjustment presets that effectively are going to change all the settings of this mask. Even though we don't have all the AI tools in Capture One, you'll see some presets in ModKit that actually, as part of the preset, add a layer that has settings defined in it, and then you can brush in where you want that mask to affect the image. The main thing to remember is that whether you're using my mod presets from Silver, from Filmist, or ones that are included in other packs that I make, or whether you're making your own, the goal of a good mod preset or style is that you save a specific element like dynamic range, like curve, like color that's important. Let's say I come into here and I've ran this filmic look on this panoramic. I can then go to ModKit and say, no, I want to do the F curve. No, I want to go down with the exposure. I can boost the color or I can soften the color. You don't have to select your main recipe in your preset based on every nuance of its texture, its tonality, its shadow, and its color saturation. For example, it could be anything. A mod preset saves 1 or 2 or 3 sliders, sort of micro adjustments in the big scheme of things. One thing to remember is that once you add those mods, if you go back and do a primary preset, a master recipe, right, it's gonna change those back. If I apply a mod that, like the F curve, that adjusts the curve, and so I now have the F curve, if I now go back and switch my filmic look, say I go to the Ektar look, or I go to classic chrome, you'll notice that that curve changes to match whatever that preset. And that's the difference between complete recipes, which is what a filmic preset is, for example, and a mod. A mod only adjusts one little thing, so it doesn't change your entire formula. Apply a recipe, whatever it might be it silver, be it filmic, be it gold chrome, be it belladonna, power workflow, then take a mod from anywhere in the collections and just add to it. You don't always need a mod on a preset, but if you look at your photo and like, man, I just wish it had a little more contrast. Don't search for a whole new recipe, just go to a mod preset. Don't ever let someone tell you that amateurs use presets and styles and actions and things like that. If someone's saying that, it's actually because they haven't yet learned how to use their software. When you create variations and edits faster, it's not cheating. It lets you be more creative and you get better, more impactful results. All right, guys, that's all for now. We'll see you next time.